Chapter 4. Jess? Iblis asked softly. I slowly lifted my head and met her clear blue eyes. Her expression reflected the same emotion I'd been feeling in my chest, and only now did I think of a word for it. Compassion. I shook my head. I had no place for these feelings, no way to categorize them, so I tucked them away. And you? Tell me about your Earth life. Even as I said the words, a yearning desire, the hunger that I kept repressed, opened up like a giant cavern inside of me. All who chose to follow Hasatan were denied the opportunity to go to Earth, and I, an abomination in both kingdoms, was never even asked who I wished to follow. Iblis had those black wings, the symbol of her choice to follow the chosen before she was born. She didn't even remember making a choice, but there it was. The proof. Well, Iblis gave a little laugh. I was born in Connecticut, in Southington, a little town outside the capital. I've got 2 brothers. I'm the youngest. My mom and dad work for the local newspaper. My mom's an editor, and my dad's a writer. I'm on the volleyball team. Was. She whispered the last word. Do you think I'll still be able to play sports here? I don't know anything. This is all new to me as well. I wanted to ask her more questions about Earth, her family, her body, what it had been like to touch other people. My fingers traced each other, a haunting longing in the touch. The only being I would ever feel was myself. Iblis went to her bed and picked up the uniform, a short, pleated apron that looked to go around her waist instead of slacks. It had a matching white tunic, but instead of a drawstring to tie together, it had a row of white buttons. It seems so odd. Here we are, dead, but everything still feels so alive. I think it's because you didn't understand what life is, I said before I could stop myself. Being mortal didn't make you alive. You've always been, and you still are. She nodded. I'm starting to see that now. This name doesn't feel genuine, but it's actually the real me. She scooped up her uniform in her arms and headed for the room attached to ours. I think I'll go change. I stared after her. She was coming to terms with this so quickly. I ran my fingers over my own uniform, laid out beside me on the bed. I felt the soft fabric beneath my fingers, the texture of the cloth. I noted, with relief, that the tunic was long-sleeved. If I ever did decide to put on the uniform, at least it would cover my chains. Not that I could hide them forever. Perhaps it would be better just to show them and get it over with. The door opened and Iblis stepped out. The tunic was tucked into the skirt. A strange piece of fabric designed to match the skirt hung from her neck. She still wore the pink shoes from her earthly clothing, but everything else was changed. What is this? I asked, eyeing the odd fashion statement. Oh, it's called a tie. It's pretty common with private schools back home. But this is home now, isn't it? She got a quizzical look on her face. I shrugged, not ready to commit to Arcadia as my new home. But there was a growing part of me that wanted to fit in, experience what it would be like to be a normal angel, just like them, before they discovered my true identity. For as long as I could. Unlike my roommate, I did not change out of the clothes I was wearing. They were all I had ever known, and they fit me like a glove. They represented the person I was when I came here, and I wasn't ready to let go of that. It frightened me to think I might become like one of the heavenly hosts. Instead, I stepped over to the bookshelf and tilted my head, studying the spines of the books. The markings were shimmery and metallic, almost as if someone had painted fire onto the books. These must be for our classes, Iblis said, joining me. Such interesting titles. Ancient History of the Titans, Numbering the Stars, Understanding Quantum Physics. She let out a gasp. You know what this means? All of the secrets of the universe, all of those unanswered questions. We get to know them. That's what we're doing here. I could only stare at her, not sure what kind of understanding she just received that hadn't already been obvious. He's not going to tell us his secrets, I said, unable to keep the derision from my voice. He keeps that knowledge to himself and a precious few others. I could name names, but I chose not to. She gave me an odd look, like what I said didn't quite match up with her expectations. Well, I would happily enlighten her with the truth behind the story she learned here at the academy, but I would have to earn her trust first. A knock sounded at the door, and we both turned and looked at it. "Come in," Iblis said, speaking first, which was good because I had not even been sure of the proper response. The door opened to reveal Barakiel. He paused in the threshold and nodded at us. "I see you found the books, and Iblis is in uniform." There was no mistaking the approval in his eyes. "I have an agenda for each of you. You will find your class schedule inside." He held a small brown book toward Iblis. "Thank you," Iblis said, accepting it. She opened it and her eyes went wide. "What kind of book is this?" "It's your personal assistant here at the academy. It functions like a book. It also functions like the tablets you are familiar with from Earth. And like a computer, with a messaging system to both your teachers and your fellow students." "Jez?" I turned to see Barakiel holding another book out to me. My face warmed. I'd been so caught up in watching Iblis with her book that I hadn't noticed my own. I shook my head, not extending my hand to take it. "I can't read," I whispered. Had he forgotten that small detail? "I know. The situation will be rectified. Take your agenda, please." I heaved a sigh and snatched it from his fingers. When I opened it, it was my turn for my eyes to go wide. Instead of unfamiliar letters, a gray screen glowed back at me. "There's nothing here," I said. Iblis peeked over my shoulder. "How interesting! Mine has a list of my classes. Yours is blank." A single line scrawled across mine, even as I stared. "Please go to the library to meet your tutor for lesson number 1, Iblis read from behind me. She pulled back to peer at me, then turned to Barakiel. "I thought we had classes together, but my first class is Intro to History. Jez won't have classes with the rest of us?"
"Even as first years, you won't take all your classes together, though you will see familiar faces everywhere you go. But Jez will have private classes to begin with. Then she will join the rest of the first years for more advanced learning."
"Oh," Iblis nodded, an expression of understanding crossing her face. "She needs remedial help." Remedial help. I didn't like the sound of it. Judging from how Iblis said it, it couldn't be a good thing.
"Be on your way, then,"
Barakiel said. I gave a start. "Wait, just like that? I have to go meet this tutor?" Even Iblis looked surprised. "We don't get a day to adjust?"
"You won't need it. Everything here will feel very comfortable to you very quickly."
I had my doubts about that. "I guess I'm on my way to Intro to History," Iblis said, consulting her book again. I felt a surge of panic as Iblis started out of the room. I barely knew her, and I wasn't even sure I liked her, but I didn't have anyone else. "When will I see you again?" I asked her. "I don't know. Do we have any classes together?" She looked at Barakiel. He nodded.
"The first years will meet together for after-death counseling starting tomorrow. Jez will be there."
"But I didn't—" I began, and then I cut myself off. I wasn't ready to reveal that info about myself.
"A part of everyone died to come to GAA, Jez,"
Barakiel said, his blue eyes piercing me. I took a step back, feeling the meaning behind his words. Perhaps he was right. In a way, a part of me had died. Or had it. Maybe I just carried hell around under my skin. "But that's tomorrow," I said. "What about today?" Maybe I wouldn't see Iblis until we returned to our rooms. Which was when?
"All of the academy takes mealtime together,"
Barakiel said. "Meals!" Iblis's entire face lit up. "We get to eat! Oh, that makes me so happy!" She actually clapped her hands, the exact picture of joy. I looked at Barachiel in confusion. But our spirits require no nourishment.
Our spirits require as much nourishment as physical bodies do. We just require spiritual nourishment. The food we serve in the cafeteria is created to resemble mortal food. Not only does it satisfy an emotional need, but it is imbued with charity and sacrifice and love. Thus, it has a substantial amount of light, the substance that enables all beings to exist in Shamayim with the Father,
Barachiel said. I love food, Iblis breathed. I'll see you at dinner, Jez. With that, she went down the hallway, a skip in her step, as if she'd forgotten her recent death and sudden arrival at GAA. How can she be so accepting of all these changes? I asked, watching her go.
The emotions of sadness and loss and despair only linger in mortality. In this second existence, the understanding that pain and suffering are fleeting and temporary enables us to process them quickly and move on to the more agreeable emotions. As celestial beings, we still feel those emotions, but we know how to channel them so they don't consume us. Except during grave circumstances, when even knowledge of eternity cannot erase the emotional pain of certain events. Her spirit is already attuning itself to the celestial atmosphere. She will adapt quickly and be a brilliant pupil.
Well, I looked down at my screen, feeling stupid for asking. Then there was me, the angel so behind I couldn't even go to normal classes yet. Who is this tutor?
His name is Malik. He's a year 2, and he's the team lead for your dorm. He is one of my best students, one who greatly understands the challenges of mortality and adjusting to academy life. I've assigned him to you as a tutor.
A tutor? Is that normal?
Every year, a handful of second-year students are selected to mentor those incoming first years with additional needs. It's not abnormal. However, given the unusual circumstances of your arrival, I felt it necessary to brief him about you.
To brief him? Did you tell him? A cold shiver of fear rippled down my spine. So, it was already over, before it had even begun. Everyone would know.
Malik's soul is honest and integral. He is someone you can trust. However, I did not tell him who you are.
Jezbataset. He didn't tell him my lineage. I exhaled in relief.
I told him where you came from.
I jolted. That was almost just as bad. You told him I came from Sheol? That I'm a Forsaken? That would be enough to make this angel hate me. We were sworn enemies.
You can expect he'll have many questions, but it will be up to you to answer them. It is your choice what you reveal or don't.
Choice. I gritted my teeth. So far, it didn't seem like all it was cracked up to be.
Follow me,
Barachiel said, stepping out of the room.
I'll take you to the library.
The library was beyond the dormitories, continuing in a diagonal line behind the tall buildings. If the administration building were a sun, the dorms were the planets circling it, and the outer buildings were moons. The cosmic similarities were not lost on me. The library was the tallest building on campus, the one I had spotted from a distance when we entered Arcadia. Spirals reached into the heavens and disappeared into the clouds. We stepped inside, and I paused in the spacious entryway to admire the grand, sweeping structure lined with bookcases. Even craning my head back, I could not see the tops of them. Wow, I breathed.
Every book ever written is stored here,
Barachiel said.
You can find information on any subject.
I fixed him with a steely glare. Any subject? I knew for a fact that heaven withheld critical information from its followers. If they knew the truth about the war, they would have made very different choices. He held my gaze.
Any subject. There is nothing you know, or think you know, Jez, that cannot be taught or explained further.
He turned his head, and so did I.
There is Malik.
Several desks lined the interior of the library, and sitting at one of them, directly in front of us, was a boy. How had I missed him? His golden brown eyes peered at us, studying me intensely.
His brows furrowed as if in disapproval of what he saw, and the magnificent black wings behind him fluttered before folding inward and resting against his back. "Malik," Barakiel led me forward. "This is Jez. She is the one you will be teaching to read." Malik's eyes glanced Barakiel's direction before landing on me again, scrutinizing me, as if trying to discover my secrets. I pulled my jacket closer, afraid he would somehow see the chains that bound me to the underworld wrapped around my arms. "Malik," Barakiel said, a tone of warning in his voice. "Remember your training." He looked up again and nodded, this time focusing on the Archangel. "I will heed your words." Barakiel nodded. "I will leave you to it. Bring her to the new student orientation in 2 hours." Malik's eyes flitted to mine again, and I saw in them irritation that I'd been left to his charge. My face burned, an unpleasant sensation I was becoming all too familiar with. "Yes, Elder Master Barakiel," Malik said. Barakiel swiveled and left the library. Malik gestured to the chair opposite him at the desk. "Sit." I was not obligated to obey him, and I felt a surge of resentment toward him. I considered refusing. I considered running after Barakiel and telling him I'd changed my mind about all of this. But there was something in Malik's eyes as he appraised me, something like smugness, like that was what he expected of me. I pulled out the chair and sat down. We both stared at each other for a few moments. Then Malik's eyes turned down to the book in front of him. He leafed through the pages. "So," he said quite casually, "you're one of the renegades." I glared at him, the lusty emotion of hatred firing through my veins. I knew this feeling. It was the one that fed and fueled me, got me through each day of my existence. It was the one I whispered into the souls of mankind, prompting them to heinous deeds of darkness. Weak, these self-righteous, condescending, arrogant angels from God's side had nicknamed all of Hasatan's followers renegades, simply because they had chosen a different path. And because of it, they were condemned to Sheol, condemned to seek their sustenance from the follies of men. I might not have been at the first war, but I was condemned right along with them. "You hate me," he said, with such certainty that I reared back. "How can you—" I began, fearing he was also reading my mind. And then I remembered. We were empatias. He could probably read my emotions as easily as he could read a book. I lowered my gaze and took several deep breaths, trying to control my feelings. He waited, without saying a word. I finally lifted my eyes, but this time I studied him, trying to get an emotional reading off him. I could not even discern a color. Why was that? "Did Barakiel tell you I'm a renegade?" I forced the word out. "We did not call ourselves that. We called ourselves Forsaken, because we've been cast out, abandoned, left to fend for ourselves. And we had fended for ourselves, the best we could." Malik's eyes remained stern as he stared at me. "He told me you could not read because you've spent your existence in Sheol. You have no wings. It was easy to put the pieces together." So, Barakiel had not told him even that much. I exhaled and ran my finger over the wood grain of the desk. For a moment, I wondered if the furniture was brought from Earth or if angels also had the skills to work wood. "Are you?" he asked, driving my attention back to him. "Am I what?" I said, matching the poisonous tone of his voice. "Are you a renegade?" He couldn't begin to imagine my existence. How would I survive Sheol if I wasn't able to pry the darkest emotions out of a soul? I was a Forsaken from the moment I was created, existing as a shadow among humanity, bringing out the vile and wicked tendencies of mankind. I wasn't given any other option. Chapter 5. Do you hate me? I couldn't meet his eyes when I asked the question.
Something within my chest trembled, and I willed myself to be still. His reaction to me was what I could expect from every angel who learned the truth. He sighed. "Why are you so intent on destroying humanity?" I couldn't even think of a response. Then my eyes flew to his as I burst out. "What? What makes you think I am?" He blinked. "Aren't you?" He thought I wanted to destroy humanity? Why would I want to do that? What were they to me? Nothing. Their short, brief lives would end and be snuffed out before I'd even finished maturing. They held no power over me. "No," I said. "Well, maybe not you in particular," he said, and his shoulders relaxed slightly. "But you're kind." It wasn't that the Forsaken wanted to destroy humanity. They just wanted a piece of it. They wanted to feel what humans felt and feed off those emotions. Sometimes, I admitted, human souls became casualties. Luckily, I didn't have to explain that as Malik kept talking. "And why do you get to come to GAA when no other renegade gets to? What makes you so special?" I couldn't tell him that, so I said, "I don't know." He gestured to the book in front of him. "I've been reading, looking for other examples, other cases of a renegade attending the academy. I can't find any account or history of it. It's as if you're the first." The wings came out again, fluttering, and I took it to be a sign of agitation. "Why?" I could only shake my head. The wings opened all the way, and I tried not to stare at the impressive span as they flapped once before folding against his body. The envy sprouted in me like a budding plant, and I wanted to see them again. I wanted to touch them. "You can't touch." The rule was seared into my very being, and I pushed down the forbidden desire. He watched me a moment more, but when I said nothing else, he must have concluded I didn't know. Pressing his lips together, he pulled out what looked like a book ripped in half, long, with white, blank pages. He placed beside it a marking utensil. "Brachial has asked me to bring you up to speed. He said even you don't know how much you don't know. So, I'm supposed to stick to you like glue for the next few days and help you understand everything you see and hear." We could start with him. I heard his words, but half of what he said didn't make sense to me. I slowly shook my head. "I don't know what you're saying." His brow creased. "What did you not understand?" "What is up to speed?" He blinked, and then he let out a short laugh. "You really don't know anything. Who did you spend your time with? The hellhounds?" "I was left alone in a dark room for most of my existence," I said, lashing out at his humor, "except for when I was called forward to fulfill my duties." That cut off his laughter. His expression grew somber, and I knew he was imagining what evil duties I might have been fulfilling. Let him imagine. "Up to speed means I'm going to teach you what all the other kids here know, so you don't stick out like a sore thumb," he said shortly. His terminology was still foreign to me, but I got the gist. "You'll teach me what I need to know to fit in." "That's right. And I also have to teach you to read." He lifted the book of white paper. "Do you know what this is?" "Paper?" I said. I did know some things, at least. "It's a notepad. We use them on Earth to learn how to read and write." He put the notepad down. "Why can't you read?" "I was never taught." "It's more than that, though. Are there no books in hell?" I was silent a moment, but then I figured I wasn't revealing any big secret. "Inhabitants of Sheol can't comprehend written glyphs. He will not allow it." "He who?" "You know." I pointed my finger toward the heavens. "Him." Interest sparked in Malik's eyes. "Why?" "I can't believe you didn't already know this," I sneered, unable to resist the jibe at his self-righteous attitude. "Because he plays favorites, and we are not them." Malik leaned forward on the desk, his expression darkening. "That's not it." "How do you know?" "Because
I know the father, and that's not how it works.
Really? I challenged. You've met him.
Well, no,
Malik faltered.
not yet. I will after I graduate, though.
Then your knowledge of him is less reliable than mine. I lifted my chin. You've been dead for how long?
4 Earth years,
Malik said.
but
So you've been here for 4 years? I've been simmering in Sheol for the equivalent of 10 Earth lifetimes. I think I'm the more reliable source on the matter.
But you've been in hell,
Malik fired back.
Your information is tainted. Your whole worldview is distorted and black.
No, it's not, I returned. I see things how they really are, not through a wholly glorified view.
That's impossible,
Malik said, and finally a color appeared around his body, a vibrant red pulsing around his being.
You are tainted and distorted. Everything you perceive will be the same.
He stood up, grabbing the notepad and pulling it to his body.
I cannot teach you. I will tell Barakiel to find someone else.
He pushed away from the table and strode toward the door, his wings flapping in rhythm to his rapid footsteps, his feet practically gliding across the stone floor. And all I could think was that I wanted to glide my fingers along the edges of those feathers. Hello, first years! The angel that came into the classroom smiled at us behind the podium that was taller than she was. She grabbed a stool and pulled it over, then stood so she could see over it. Ah, that's better. I didn't want to like her. I didn't want to like anyone, not after that horrible encounter I'd had in the library with Malik a few hours earlier. But her tiny stature, quick smile, and bright pink hair made it hard to dislike her. I'm Master Nuriel, she said. Most of you won't see me again until you're a 4th year because I teach advanced classes. But I also get to do new student orientation. She smiled again, her white wings fluttering like a butterfly's behind her. She reminded me more of a mythical pixie than an angel. You've discovered your gift by now and been assigned to a dorm. Hopefully you're feeling more comfortable here at Yishuv. There are just a few practical things I'd like to go over with you. She glanced down at the podium and cleared her throat, then looked up again. By now, you've been to your dorm. We have 3 dorms on campus. Aleph, Hasid, and Emet. The 3 dorms form a triangle around the quad. The boys' rooms are always on the left side of the building and girls on the right. Your classes are arranged by year and then dorm, so you will see the angels from your dormitory more often than those from the others. Master Selephiel already told you flying on campus is not allowed. Sometimes your wings will control you more than you control them, and we understand that. But intentionally is prohibited on campus, so please, don't do it. Use your legs. Remember the blessing of having a body, even if it's a spiritual one. She consulted the podium again. Many of you come to us with vices for mortality still affecting your mental state. You will be assigned special classes to help you with these vices, as they are much harder to control in this existence than in your last, but controlling them is essential. Whatever weaknesses you did not overcome in mortality must be conquered now, most especially the vice of lust. She grew very serious, taking the effort to meet the eyes of nearly every angel in the room. You will learn more about sacraments in your advanced classes, but steer clear of the carnal desires. It is not done here. There can be no accidents. Later, you will learn about bindings and the important nature of these feelings. But for now, just know that you must not give in. I tilted my head, intrigued. Lust was a physical appetite, and I'd assumed it required a physical body. How could angels feel that? Was it simply a leftover memory from their mortality? We do play sports in this existence. That warm smile flashed again. You'll learn more about Skyball later, but we encourage you to attend the games and participate on the team if you feel so inclined. And finally, Shema. Her smile became more reverent. Shema is the evening devotional we hold every day. It's when a conduit opens to Shamayim, and the light of the Father descends upon us and nourishes our souls. You are invited to come, to lift your voices to Him, and get to know the Father who you once knew so well. The light will help you remember your previous existence, and each memory will fortify you as you go through your studies and recall who you are. That's all. Shema begins directly after dinner in the auditorium. Thank you for your attention.
Master Neriel stepped down, and the other angels stood. Curiosity and an eagerness to experience Shema reflected in their voices. Not me. I already knew I'd be staying as far away from the light as possible. I didn't know what else to do with myself, so I returned to my room. I sat down on my bed and stared at the glowing screen in my hands. The gray page flashed a message at me, but I couldn't read it. I was used to being alone, with nothing to do and nothing to hear except my thoughts. But I'd never had so many thoughts to ponder before, and my mind found it overwhelming. I lay back on my bed and stared at the ceiling, at the light placed there as if to mimic the sun, as if one could capture the glory of the sun and place it in a small container to light the rooms. I wasn't sure I'd ever used the word glory before. Definitely not to describe the sun. But why not? The brilliant orb was glorious. The thought made me sit up, and I stared at the door. Light. Light was glorious. A shiver ran through me. I was changing. Without even meaning to, I had started to see light differently than yesterday, when light was still something to be afraid of. Before Barachiel brought me here under his protection, where I could face the realm of Arcadia without being burned to ash. I stood up and walked into the adjacent room, the one I hadn't yet explored. A reflective glass steadied itself on the wall, which I found surprising. Vanity was one of the biggest sins of humanity, and these mirrors only perpetuated the mortal tendency to admire oneself. What other purpose could it serve? But my thoughts quickly redirected when I caught a glimpse of myself. I knew I had long, dark hair because I'd gripped it in my hands before and held it before my face. But the only time I'd spent on Earth had been as a shadow, and I'd never seen my reflection. It had never even occurred to me to wonder what I looked like. Now, I stared back at the image in the mirror with astonishment. My eyebrows were slanted upwards at the ends, as were my eyes, which were so brown they were almost black. I wondered who created my features. I trailed my fingers over the high cheekbones and touched the corners of my face, intrigued. This was me, Jisbathaset. A familiar knock at the door brought me out of the bathroom. "Come in," I said, imitating Iblis's response earlier. The door opened, and I wasn't the least bit surprised to see Barachiel there. "It didn't work out with Malik," I said. "He got up and left." "I have spoken with Malik, and he regrets his behavior," Barachiel said. "But you also should not have spoken the way you did." "What?" I scoffed. "I upset his sensitivities? The truth bothered him?" "The problem is, Jez, that you don't know what is truth and what isn't. Until you learn, your best course of action is to keep silent and observe." I didn't like his insinuation. The implication that my understanding of the universe might be incorrect didn't settle correctly with me. "That's how all of you are," I said, my ichor growing hot again. "You think you know everything. Any opinion that differs from yours, anyone who threatens your authority, any truth that might show you what you really are, you stomp on it, you shove it down, you stifle it as soon as you can. Your followers only come along blindly because they don't know any better." Barachiel did not move or say a word while I raged. Only after I paused to take a breath did he speak. "Are you done?" "No." But no more angry words came to me. I needed him to fight back for me to keep going. Relenting, I leaned my head against the wall. "Yes." "As I said, Jez, keep your mind open to learning new things. No one here will tell you what you should or shouldn't believe. but the truth will reveal itself.
Ugh, how his smug confidence made me want to hit something. I was quite certain the truth would reveal itself, and not in the way he expected. I had always assumed the archangels were involved in the Great Deception, but it only took a day with Barachiel to know he was sincere in his mission. No, the deception began higher up, and the guilt lay with those of higher powers.
Tomorrow you will meet again with Malik after your first class. May I see your schedule?
I turned to my bed and picked up the book. He opened it and touched the gray page. Lights flickered as something else crossed over the page. He handed it back to me.
I've changed your settings so your book will not show you words, but images. The building you see on the screen is your next destination. When it's time to go somewhere else, a new building will appear. Once you've learned to read, your screen will resemble those of the other students, but you won't have regular classes until you've mastered that skill.
I could only stare at my book. The gray page was gone, replaced by a glowing, flat replica of the long, squat building behind the Hesed dormitory. How did you do this? Barachiel smiled.
Technology, Jez. Heaven has always implemented the technology that mortals are just beginning to understand. But we introduce it in degrees to the students, giving them what they are familiar with before moving on to more advanced objects.
Technology. I didn't know the word, but I could see the definition clearly in front of me. My sense of injustice bridled again. What right did heaven have to keep this from Sheol? Why were we stripped of our powers except in certain spheres, trapped in unpleasant realms, and forced to use the minimal of elements? Why couldn't we have the same technology? I tailored my thoughts, cutting back the most rebellious ones and working hard to avoid any inclination of my intentions from creeping in. Shamayim would pay for forcing the inhabitants of Sheol to live in the darkness. Chapter 6. I walked alone from my dorm toward my next destination, which Barachiel told me was the cafeteria, a place of comfort and familiarity to mortals who would gather in such places to socialize and eat. Other students began to emerge from various dorms and buildings, moving in the same direction as me.
I wondered if I would see you again.
I turned slightly, not expecting anyone to talk to me. Sitting on top of his dorm sign, his wings opening and closing as if they had a mind of their own, was the Shadow Shade Angel. Kerubiel, I said, his name coming to me. He smiled, but it was a dark expression. It didn't light his face the way Iblis's did when her lips curved upward. It drew me toward him.
What did they say we are?
He asked as I stepped closer.
Empatia angels?
Yes. I stopped a few feet from him.
So, you see emotions.
A color like brown and green swirled around him, rippling and rolling off his shoulders and wings.
What am I feeling?
I don't know, I said. I haven't attended my classes yet.
Ah.
He stepped off the sign and closed the distance between us, his eyes, so blue they were nearly black, swallowing me in their depths. His hair curled in loose waves against his head.
So, you're a rebel also? Already skipping classes?
A rebel? A renegade? That was what the angels called us. Yes, that's what I am, I said. For some reason, it didn't bother me to tell him. I knew he wasn't going to hate me. If anything, his attitude indicated it was a desirable trait. That filled me with a sort of confidence that made my heart swell.
Going to dinner?
He nodded his head toward the long building in front of me, where the students were clustering together as they entered the doors, an air of joviality and companionship emanating from them. Yes.
Well, let's go then, Jez.
He knew my name. We walked together toward the cafeteria, his wings opening and closing at random times. Can you control them? I asked. He paused and glanced at me, then continued forward.
Where are your wings?
I halted mid-step, my veins flushing ice cold. I'd given myself away with my question. I considered lying, but I wasn't sure what to say, so I kept silent. He waited a moment, but when I said nothing, he said,
I can't control them yet. They just sort of do their own thing. I guess I'll learn how in class.
So, there was a class on that, too.
I've heard that sometimes angels get them torn off,
he said softly. A little shudder ran through me. You've heard that? I'd seen the marks on the backs of the fallen, ones who crossed a rule or boundary and were thrust down to Sheol. Only shadow wings, a dark memory of what used to be, remained. They were angels who had already received their white wings. I could not begin to imagine the pain they must go through at the physical loss of such beautiful appendages. He was looking at me again, a deep blue-green color seeping out of his skin. I struggled to maintain eye contact, distracted by his aura. I met his gaze and saw the question there. No, I said, answering it. That's not what happened to me.
But something did,
he said, with the tone of one who knows.
Something damaged you.
How do you know that? I breathed. You can't see colors.
I don't need to. I recognize a kindred spirit.
Something inside me seemed to wake up, as if a light turned on in my chest. Have you been damaged?
Over and over again.
He took a step closer, his dark eyes capturing mine.
There's no fixing me. GAA is not the place for me. I don't belong here. Somehow, I think you don't either.
I flinched, taking a step back and looking away. I felt as if he could peer into my soul and uncover my secrets, and I didn't want my secrets uncovered. Kerubiel, a girl called. We both turned to see two angels standing by the cafeteria, the girl waving at Kerubiel. Neither had donned their uniforms.
I'll see you later, Jez.
Kerubiel's smile was both intriguing and disarming. I stared after him, confused by the emotions tumbling around in my chest.
Don't get too close.
I whirled around as Malik came up behind me. His face remained stern, his eyes unreadable. No color swirled around his visage now. What do you mean? I stared at him.
I see the effect he has on you.
He didn't release my gaze.
He's playing your emotions.
I had no context for his words, but they made me defensive all the same. I don't know what you're talking about.
Maybe you don't.
He finally looked away.
Our dorm sits at table D, if you would like to join us. There's no obligation.
He continued into the cafeteria with several other students. No obligation. Was that a reminder that I had a choice? Or his subtle way of telling me he didn't want me there? Maybe I was catching on to human nuances after all. Jez, there you are! Iblis stepped to my side, her face flushed. That class was so interesting. I can't believe I went through my entire mortal life without knowing anything about heaven or angels or demons. She reached for me again, and I flinched, rearing back before she got too close. Why hadn't they told her touch was forbidden? That should have been the first rule explained in their classes. But also, if she knew who I was, where I came from, she wouldn't be so keen to be close to me. My reaction didn't go unnoticed. She frowned, some of the glee going out of her face. What's wrong? So many things. But I started with, why would you presume to touch me? Well, she shrugged, still looking confused. We're friends. I was excited to see you, to find out about your first class. First of all, I said, my incredulity ringing in my voice, you can't touch me. I can't touch you? I wasn't done. And you don't know me, yet you assume a closeness to me that I don't reciprocate. I'm not looking for friends. I'm just trying to get through each day. Okay, she said in a more subdued tone. Sorry for being presumptuous. She turned away, a gray color pulsating around her person. I didn't have to attend a class to know what it meant. I shuffled into the cafeteria behind her, wrapping my arms around my waist, as if to shield myself from the onslaught of emotions and expectations of the students around me. Iblis paused to speak to Malik at what could only be Table D. Malik looked up and met my eyes, but I turned away, avoiding his gaze. Instead, I found an unoccupied table and sat down. Iblis moved past the table into a line of students. I watched them, curious in spite of my dismal mood. The students walked through a set of doors and came out the other side with a tray in their hands. They dispersed from there and settled into different tables, their expressions almost uniformly joyful and glad. Except for one group of students. Carubiel stepped up to a table surrounded by angels who shared colors of brown and gray with hints of blue in their auras. He held a tray of food in his hands, just like everyone else, and they welcomed him, greeted him with smiles and head bobs. They wore the purple color of the Emet dorm, to the right of my own. Their moodiness hung over their heads, a feeling of brooding pouring off them. They seemed magnetized to each other, sucking one another into their auras. I stood up, suddenly knowing where I wanted to be. I didn't bother to grab a tray of food before sitting down next to Carubiel at the table.
"Jez?"
he said, giving me a slightly startled look. The chatter at the table fell silent, and the others stared at me. An odd feeling came over me, making me want to jump up and run away. "Who is she?" the girl who had beckoned to Carubiel said. She glowered at me as if I were the enemy. It hadn't occurred to me that I wouldn't be welcome. "Can I sit here?" Carubiel faced the others.
"She's all right. She could see color,"
a boy with fair hair and splotchy skin said. Red and a brilliant shade of yellow spiked off his body.
"We don't mix with them."
"How do you know I see color?" I asked. "Because you keep looking past us instead of at us," the girl said. "It's easy to spot."
"She's not like the others," Carubiel said. "She's an outsider also." "Well then, welcome."
The boy held his hand out to me.
"Might be nice to have someone who can read feelings on our side."
I shrank back from his hand. Was this a test?
"Man, this food is great."
Carubiel redirected the conversation, taking their attention off me.
"Like manna from heaven. Too bad we're expected to be vegetarians now."
They laughed and grumbled, and the conversation resumed. Only then did Carubiel turn to me.
"You aren't going to eat?"
I shook my head. "It's not necessary, and I never developed a taste for it."
"You are one odd soul."
He eyed me as he bit into what looked like a ball of rice.
"I can't wait to learn more about you."
A shiver of something almost predatory and delicious crept down my spine. I held on to the heady feeling, relishing it. Maybe not all of these new experiences would be unpleasant. Iblis did not bring up our interaction when I saw her in our dorm room later. Actually, she did not say a word to me. She changed out of her uniform and disappeared into the bathroom, where she mumbled to herself about not being able to find a toothbrush. Then she came back out, climbed into her bed, and turned out the light. As if I were not even there. I laid in my own bed and stared into the darkness. But even with the lights out, it wasn't completely dark. Not like in Sheol. I could still discern particles of light and energy around me. Spiritual beings did not require as much rest as mortals did, but we still required some. But resting reminded me too much of being secreted away for most of my existence, hidden from the prying eyes of heaven. The worst part had been the loneliness, wondering when someone would come see me again, if anyone would. Iblis said not a word from her bed, and I finally identified the colorful emotion swirling around her. Rejection, wounded pride, hurt. Because of me. I didn't have to fix this, but if I didn't, I would lose my best chance at a friend and companion. "Iblis?" I said quietly. Not a conversational response, but at least she hadn't ignored me. "I am sorry." I waited, but silence met my proclamation. I offended you, and I did not intend to. I hesitated, not sure what words should come next. I've never had a friend before, I admitted, or even someone to spend time with. More silence met my words. Then I heard the bed creak, and she pushed up on one arm to peer at me across the room. That doesn't make any sense. What kind of life did you have? I didn't, I sighed. It was a terrible existence. I've been alone for a very long time, but I think I would like... I paused, feeling the rapid pulsing of ichor in my veins. I would like you to be my friend. Considering we share a room together, it would be nice. She reached over and switched the bedroom light back on. Why didn't you sit with us at dinner? How could I explain that one? I think I fit in better with the other angels. Malik said to beware of them, Iblis said. He said there's a darkness around them, and the darkness often leads angels to become fallen. Malik. The name sent a spike of indignation shooting through me. Malik doesn't know everything. No, but he's pretty smart. He's the team lead for our dorm. He's been here a few years already. How did she know all this? What classes did you have today? Just intro to history. Tomorrow I have the art of language, some kind of therapy class, and human relations. You? None. I have to master basic principles before I can attend classes with everyone else. But I get to go to the therapy class. Oh, that's interesting. A moment of silence followed, and then Iblis said, Can I help with anything? I sensed it was a genuine offer, and it rubbed me in an uncomfortable manner. No, Malik is helping me. He's my tutor. Malik is your personal tutor? She sounded impressed. Then I'm sure you'll catch up soon enough. I'm sure, I said. We drifted into silence. I didn't feel completely at ease, but at least I didn't feel so isolated. Natural sunlight streamed through our dorm room window in the morning, waking us both. The sleep rested my mind, and I climbed out of bed feeling refreshed and ready to tackle whatever was coming my way. Iblis donned her uniform again, carefully settling the school badge near her left collar. I stood up and picked up my agenda, checking what building I should be going to. The cafeteria. Jez? I looked at Iblis, who smiled at me gently while pulling her long golden hair to the side and weaving it. You haven't changed your clothes since we arrived, she said. You don't want to go out today in the same thing as yesterday. Why should that be a concern? I asked. Well, the clothes are dirty. I glanced down at them, grabbing the fringes of my skirt and looking for signs of soil. Then I frowned at her. They're not dirty. They're as good as they've always been. They're the same, at least. You don't want to wear the same thing 2 days in a row. I had worn them my whole existence. I sensed that would be the wrong thing to say, though. You are wearing the same shoes. She looked down at the pink shoes and laughed. It's okay to wear the same shoes every day. These are my favorite. These are my favorite, and I have no others, so this it will be. You have your uniform. I glanced toward the wardrobe filled with proper uniforms and academy attire. I was no more ready to don them today than I had been yesterday. What's wrong with this? I asked, almost challenging her to find something offensive with my jagged skirt and tight black jacket. You're dressed in leather. It makes you look like some kind of rebel. Leather. I fingered the soft, supple material of my sleeve. So that was what this was called. You could at least take the jacket off. It's not cold here. No. I pulled the jacket closer to me. It stays on. Perhaps forever. Without it, all my secrets would be given away. Fine, she shrugged. Sit with us at breakfast? Her invitation resonated within me. Was this what it meant to have a friend? Okay. I walked with Iblis back to the cafeteria and followed her through the line, where she loaded her tray with what appeared to be mortal food. I found this silly at best and deceptive at worst. Why encourage the pleasures of gluttony? "Aren't you getting anything?" Iblis asked me. I shook my head. I remembered what Barakiel had said about the food being imbued with light. I didn't know what would happen to me if I ate, and I didn't want any more light near me. "I don't eat." "Here." She picked a small rectangular container with a brown square and set it on her tray. "I'll get that for you. You have to try it." I did not comment. We left the food line and went over to table D, where I spotted Malik and several unfamiliar faces. "Everyone, this is Jez," Iblis said, introducing me. "She's my roommate." The faces turned toward me, taking me in, confusion and questions in their eyes as they studied me. "But if she's your roommate, she's also a first year? In Dorm Aleph?" The girl who spoke frowned at me as she did. "Yes, that's right," Iblis said, nodding. "Why haven't we seen you in any classes?" a boy asked. "Weren't you sitting with that shadow shade yesterday?" another boy asked. "She looks like a shadow shade," a girl murmured. I stiffened, regretting my decision to pursue a friendship with Iblis and sit with my classmates. It was clear they also saw I didn't belong here.
Jez's previous learning didn't prepare her enough for the academy,
Malik said. I tilted my face toward him, surprised he came to my defense. Or had I missed a human subtlety and he was actually putting me down?
"I'm tutoring her privately until she's ready to join us in classes," he continued. "But she's one of us."
That seemed to settle it. The students shrugged and relaxed and went back to their conversations. "Here," Iblis said, putting the brown square in front of me as she sat down. "Thank you," I said to Malik as I also sat, though I wasn't sure why he deserved my gratitude. For whatever reason, his words had calmed them, put their worries to rest.
"Have you eaten food before?"
he asked, quietly enough that I hoped Iblis on the other side of me did not hear. I shook my head. He was the only angel among my peers who knew where I'd come from.
"Try it."
He nodded at the food.
"It's good."
I stared at it and then back at Malik, lifting an eyebrow.
"I'm sorry for yesterday,"
he said.
"I reacted. I'm still learning to control my reactions."
Still learning? So he didn't know everything, and he readily admitted it. Some of my misgivings smoothed down.
"Try the food,"
he said again. A smile stole across his lips.
"Trust me."
I stared at him. Did he know that light wreathed his face when he smiled? Or was that part of my gift, to be able to see it? His eyes flickered from the square in front of me to my face, the color of his irises more golden than brown. His gaze captivated me. I forced my eyes away, a tingling energy pulsing over my skin. I didn't know Malik from Adam, but for some reason, I did trust him. I picked up the brown square and placed it between my lips, then took a nibble.